Hello friends, Adam here with FED. It's been a while since I've made a video, but I wanted to talk about the emblems today from Fire Emblem Engage. Now, I've had some requests to talk about character rankings and stuff, but even after I've played through the game as many times as I have at this point, it is just so hard to talk about characters. Characters are influenced more by emblems and the class they're in than anything else in my mind, than any personal thing they have going on. So I thought it would be more apt to take a look at the emblems today, talk about them, and maybe even I'll mention some pairings and stuff that are good. And yeah, we'll just kind of give you my general thoughts. Now, feel free to disagree, yell at me in the comments. That's kind of the whole point of this, is to just create a fun discussion. So if you disagree, that's okay. All right, we're just going to go in the order that you received them, and we'll end with the DLC, even though a lot of times you get the DLC ones much earlier than, say, an Erica. But we'll start off with Marth. Marth is going to be our first unit that goes, or your first ring that goes into the Engage attacker. And when I say Engage attacker, this tier is essentially just the most useful thing they can do is they can engage and use a really strong smash weapon or something and use their engage attack. So Lodestar Rush is Marth's thing, right? Divine Speed is great too. Break Defense is also very cool. Being able to just add attacks at 50% power can lead to a lot of good early game damage. But he disappears for a very long time, number one. Number two, late game, his abilities are kind of overshadowed by other emblems that we'll talk about later. I think Marth is incredibly good early game. Don't get me wrong, incredibly good. And Mercurius is a great way to power level a unit. But as it stands in the end game, Marth is a little disappointing. And I do see a lot of people bench him. He gives an incredibly good stat spread with both strength and speed as a buff that he gives. But outside of that, he really is just kind of relegated to being a good engaged attacker. All right, Sigrid. Sigrid is going to be our first ring that goes in the one-man army tier. Now, what do I mean by one-man army tier? One-man army. These are emblems that turn units into absolute gods, not by any merit of their own generally, but because the ring is so good that it makes everybody good. And I think Sigrid is an incredibly good example of that because move is the most important stat in most strategy games, especially Fire Emblem that's generally true. That's why you see people saying flyers are really good. Number one, because flight is being able to ignore terrain, but also just having a high move stat is very, very good. And Sigrid has that going for him, right? Being able to engage for a bunch of extra move is kind of insane. And then also being able to get some build is never a bad thing either. Especially early game units like Saline really want that +1, 2, or 3 build depending on the bond level. So Sigurd's incredible. I love using him, and he honestly isn't gone that long. He might have the best availability in the game as far as emblem rings go, because you get him right after Marth, and then he comes back as early as Chapter 17. So it doesn't have that problem that Marth has of, disappearing until the very end of the game. Yeah, I would definitely say that Sigrid is creates a one-man army for sure. Celica's a hard one for me. My first thought was engage attacker. Warp Ragnarok is definitely the selling point. But the more I've used her, especially in the Xenolog, kind of opened my eyes to how good Echo is on a dragon unit. But that means you're using Celica on one of your few dragon units you get. And that is those are really sought after positions for emblems, right? And your Echo with Alor is going to do no damage because their magic stat is trash. Veil would prefer to be with at least one other emblem in particular. But, Celica is also a good pick for her. Being able to just get +1 range with Warp Ragnarok and with Echo. But I feel on any other unit, she's just kind of okay. Just kind of okay. Again, the big thing is being able to warp all over the map with Warp Ragnarok. It can be very useful in certain situations. She gives a good-ish stat spread. I mean, if you want Fram to deal as much damage as possible before Celica leaves, that's like your best bet because she gives strength and speed. Oh, not strength and speed, sorry. Strength and magic, so that's buffing both the attack stats for an arts user. But she also has an issue of, you know, being gone for a very long time. Not as long as Marth, but almost, right? Again, good early game, but the thing is all the rings are good early game because just a ring is good no matter what. That's why our lowest tier is good, I guess. You know, they can't be bad. They're just balls of stats at their worst. All right, Makaya. Makaya is going to be our first top 5. She's going to be the first person we have in our top 5. Makaya, people are going to be like, oh, well, what if you're not warp skipping? Is she even that good? Having a full map heal is awesome. A full map, all good people heal is awesome. It's great for gaining experience in the early game. But beyond that, being able to use an obstruct that covers 5 tiles is really good. Being able to rewarp, warp, and rescue groups of 4 or 5 is also very good. Even if you're not trying to 1 turn or 2 turn or just like, you know, LTC maps, still very useful and good. Don't sleep on Makaya if you're not trying to do that stuff. She just makes the game easier for you overall. Helps you get the most use out of your, you know, your freeze staff and also like obstruct staffs, staves, and things like that. And again, great for early game level ups, especially Louis, because how the way her emblem interacts with armors. Great sacrifice always hits everybody on your team, not just the people who have been dealt damage. So, yeah, she can really like power level Louis super hard. All right, Roy is 100% going into the one-man army tier. Roy is just a massive ball of stats for anyone. At full bond rank, we're getting 6 strength, which is incredible. But beyond that, Rise Above is actually really, really good, especially on the speedier units, someone like a Kagetsu or a Lapis, where they can get like +4 speed from Rise Above. And +4 speed is almost enough to double someone with equal speed as you. And those 2 units generally are pretty fast, so that's just going to... That a lot of times does put them over the top. Get them to the doubling threshold. Also, Binding Blade, really good 1-2 range weapon. Worm Slayer, great utility. The Lance Slayer or Lance Reaver or whatever it's called is okay, I guess. Yeah, Roy is an emblem that I think a lot of people kind of disregarded when the game first came out, but I think people are coming around to seeing how good he actually is. Roy is incredibly baller. One of my favorite rings at this point. One of my favorite rings at this point, for sure, for sure. All right, Leaf. Leaf is hard, man. I wanted Leaf to be good, but he's just good. I wanted him to be great. Leaf is one of my favorite characters in the series. Yeah, Leaf really struggles to stand out. He gives a crap ton of build, but it tends to be overkill build. Again, unless you're wanting to use like a heavy weapon on like Fram or something, or you know, a Fram or a Saline or Hortensia, I guess. But like, why? You know, there's better options, I feel, for those characters all around. So I think you know, good, I guess, but even his engage attack isn't very powerful unless in like the specifically right hands. It's just a really weird mix of small bits of damage from 4 different attacks. It is goofy, hard to use, and you can't even use it with like a really powerful weapon, right? You can't whip out a silver blade +5 to use with it. You have to use his base kit, which just doesn't deal enough damage, man. Adaptability, or whatever it's called, adaptable. The whole thing that allows him to switch weapons and then arm shield, like that's cool and all, but I think that's ends up being more of a detriment in the long run. So, Leaf, he's still an emblem ring, still better than having nothing equipped, so he is good, I guess. Lucina. Lucina is going to be our next top 5. Lucina is incredible. Bonded Shield alone would put her up there, but the ability to also just join in 70% of the time will just join in with a chain attack from like all over the map essentially is crazy. And allowing just anyone to become a backup is also crazy. Lucina's broken. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. She also gives a pretty good stat spread of speed and like dex and stuff. So Lucina goes well on just about anyone, but you can make the best use of her with a nice planned use of like like a group of flyers or a group of cavalry, or for me and for your money to get your money's worth out of her. I feel like you put her on a chi adept and she really pops off. Enchanter is kind of like meant for her too. I see a lot of people saying. So yeah, she's kind of broken, dude. She is kind of broken. The key to making Lucina work really well with Bonded Shield, though, is make sure that she has supports with those that she's going to be bonded shielding. So you have a character like Fram who supports like Kagetsu, obviously Alor. I'm trying to think who. I think she also supports like Gold Mary and Chloe. Just good units, right? So like Fram's a good pick to have be your bonded shield person, so that you can get the support bonuses from Lucina's personal another ability of hers. Which is like, I think it's called dual support. Essentially, it just gets a bunch of avoid for having adjacent support allies. So yeah, Lucina is incredible, man. Incredible. Lynn, I think a lot of people put Lynn in the top 5, but I'm not going to. Lynn is a one-man army, though. She takes a unit and fixes what is like maybe the second most important stat behind move, and that is speed. With Lynn, speed becomes next to a non-issue as long as they aren't like Louis, or Jade, or some other, armored super Bonet. As long as they aren't some other super slow unit, as long as their speed is like middling to good, Lynn turns them into a monster. Lynn makes everyone at the very least okay. I mean, like at the very worst okay, and for the most of the cast, she makes them incredible. So yeah. Lynn's good. Don't sleep on Lynn. Outside of that, though, the whole like fixing the speed thing, Alacrity is very awesome for being able to avoid counterattacks on player phase in a very player phase centric or heavy game. The Shadow Clone Jutsu or whatever, the illusory doubles, are very nice for luring enemies because enemies like to go for breaks and easy kills. So that's also very nice. And then, of course, Astra Storm can be great for luring bosses. It makes certain maps, so even some endgame maps, kind of a joke because she just kind of lures enemies with it. It's very nice. Ike is one that I have shifted my opinion on a lot. At first, I was like, oh, Ike must be like at least really, really good, right? Great Aether's fun. Taking half damage is awesome at the cost of, all your avoid, but that's like fine, who cares? But I kind of find myself putting him in good, I guess. I don't think Ike does enough to make a unit better. And I don't know what it is about it, but just the maybe I haven't used it on like an actual trained good unit because Ike is always usually kind of my like backup. But even when I don't know, I've tried him on Kagetsu, I've tried him on Alor, I've tried him on Gold Mary and Panette. I've just never been impressed. I'm never been impressed with what he pulls off. I understand everyone loves, like Panette with Ike with a great Aether, great Silver Axe Plus or great Silver Axe or great Silver Great Axe, however you could say it, plus 5 with the Ike Engrave, so she just like demolishes enemies. But then you have to hope she survives. I don't know. I just think he needs a lot of outside help to actually be good. So I'm going to put him in good, I guess. All right. Burlith. I don't think anyone's going to argue Burlith being in top 5. Dancing is dumb already, right? Like any dance is great, but then a 4-person dance, I understand it's like only once every 3 or 4 turns, or maybe, and that's if you're like really like optimizing your engage meter gain and potentially using like a sea doll dance on them to get it out every 3 or 4 turns. But even if it's only every 5 turns or 6 turns, that's still really good, being able to super dance. And everything else beyond that is just like icing on the cake, Divine Pulse Plus is crazy good. And I don't know, if you put him on a Mystic, you get some fun stuff with Thyrsus. But again, really those things aren't what make Burlith good. It's really just the dance, man. Dance, and then if you have the right kind of unit with Instruct, it can be really good too. Corrin. For me, Corrin is another top 5 emblem. Even if you don't put Corrin on a dragon unit, like I particularly prefer Corrin on like Alor, all of the tools in Corrin's kit can make anyone very, very useful. Draconic Hex and Dreadful Aura alone are insanely good. Being able to lock, like she can essentially just like lock down entire squads of enemies with those, and then also using like Torrential Roar or something, you can lock down entire blocks of enemies, which is really, really, like, can't be overstated how useful that is, especially on Maddening, where you get swarmed quite often. And then she has Veins for like ultimate crowd control. Obviously, like the Mystic Vein is probably the best one, but I think all the Veins, aside from Vines, Sucker, and Rock, or whatever Vein is, Vein of Stone or Vein of Rock, all the other ones are very useful. You know, Vein of Fog is great. Vein of Flames or Fire is insanely good, probably the best one. Vein of Ice has incredibly good uses, and yeah. So just Corrin's insane, dude. Even Vein of Water, even though it's kind of like an awkward spread and doesn't slow down enemies quite like you would expect or like that to, compared to Vein of Fire or Vein of Flames, whatever it's called, very, very good. All right, Erica is just a one-man army kind of unit, man. Lunar Brace on a unit with brave attacks is very good. So arts or just, you know, brave swords, brave lances. She just kind of pops off with that. So really any physical attacker likes having Erica. And then if you engage, you know, you get to heal off your attacks. Very good. The Eclipse Brace or whatever. Erica is one that you should always be using, and makes it so a unit will always be dealing at least decent damage to an enemy, especially in the late game when they get crazy high defense. There's nothing funnier to me than Fram running up to some armored knight with like 60 HP and, you know, 38 defense, and her just melting that guy's health bar. So Erica's very good for creating a very powerful unit. All right, spoiler unit, the Fire Emblem. I don't have a lot of opinions on Alor as an emblem. I think endgame is very good for them because of all the corrupted around, and they are the only way you can deal effective damage against Sombron and other fell dragons. So I think that's good, but beyond that, I'm not the biggest fan of what Alor has going on. The engage attack is very powerful. I have a hard time, man. And then also, like, the is it Bond Forger? Is that what it's called? The skill that gives like a ton of avoid and hit to nearby allies. That's also just incredibly nice and useful. Like, man, I'm having a hard time between. I don't know. It's almost like they deserve their own tier between one-man army and top 5, because I don't think they're as good as top 5, but they contribute so much to your army. For now, I'm just gonna put them in really, really good. But I could see them in a higher tier, like kind of like an in between, like maybe like the honorary number 6 of the top, you know, of the top 5, right? An honorable mention. All right, moving on though. Also, underrated thing that I stopped using the term underrated. I use it too much. But something that's not talked about enough is I think it's called Attuned. On Emblemolier, being able to buff your engaged partner and between them with a kill. It's like +4 to all stats or whatever, basic stats. Incredibly good. All right. The 3 Houses ring, Edelgard, Dimitri, Claude, might be the single best one-man army bracelet in the game. They take a unit and make them just stupid overpowered. Stupid overpowered. Has 2 of the best weapons in the game between Arid Bar and Fail Not. Only can be accessed that way. I guess Bile can also get them in a roundabout way, but they're not as good there. And then I said and then, but then there's like a bunch of and thens. That's the thing. They have so many and thens. Flame Gambit and Poison Strike, or whatever it's called, those Poison Gambit, are incredible. Shield Gambit, it's okay. Raging Storm is stupid. Falling Star, or Fallen Star, also incredible. Houses Unite is a very powerful engage attack, and then Houses Unite Plus is absolutely ridiculous. Between all the dancing options and stuff in the game and Raging Storm, anyone who's using Edelgard can move like 17 times. It's obvious exaggeration. It's like 8 or 9. It's so stupid if you put them all together. So they just delete anyone with Edelgard, as long as they have a decent strength stat, can just delete bosses. Very fun to use. Very fun to use. Tiki. Really, really good. Have a hard time putting her any higher though. Turns a unit into kind of a baller for a few turns, but also the revive crystal is very good. But outside of that, I'm not super impressed with her kit. Star Sphere, people are like, oh, but Star Sphere is so good. And it's like, I mean, yeah, I guess, but I don't know. I don't think it impacts as much as you would hope. Hector. Hector is also really, really good. I could potentially see him going into one-man army. I don't think he does quite enough to earn his spot there, though. I think he's just really, really good. Storm's Eye is very fun to use. I would prefer just like a really big engage attack, though, I think. But yeah, the real strengths of Hector come when your unit is engaged. And beyond that, like Quick Riposte is good, but usually only lasts like one round of combat on Maddening. So it kind of loses its flavor there, lacks some luster, all that. But Quick Riposte is good, and that alone would put it in really, really good. So he'll sit there. People might agree and say that he turns people into a one-man army, but I don't quite see it. All right, Soren. Soren is a one-man army kind of unit, man. Soren takes not only Veil, obviously Veil is like the pick for Soren, but beyond that, Flare is still very good. So, and then Assign Decoy is awesome. Honestly, Soren probably, we're going to do it. I hate to do it. It's going to mess up my format, but I don't care. We're going to add a row here. We're going to add a row. I hate to do it, but this is like the super support unit. If I could spell. Super support unit. Sure, we'll make it... Oh, whoops. And we'll make it like, I don't know, we'll make it pink. Because pink is fun. The super support unit. Yeah. I don't want to call it that, because that's not exactly what I'm trying to get across here. I'm going to say it's the... let's call them high tier. I don't have anything else to call them. I think these guys, the ones that go in high tier, are units that aren't quite top 5, but they deserve a higher spot than one-man army. So I think Soren goes there. I think Edelgard goes there, and I also think Alor goes there. I really like Soren's Flare, and then Assign Decoy is stupid. Edelgard can move a million times. But beyond that, I think Flame Gambit is really, really good. And then Alor just buffs all nearby allies to a really good, high degree with all that avoid. So, yeah, I have a hard time not putting them in their own kind of special tier there. I don't think they're quite on the level of the top 5, though. I'll say that. Camilla. Camilla is a hard one for me to rate, but she's just going to go in really good. Really, for me, I just slap her on Seedall so I can have flight movement with my Dancer if I need. It's really nice for chapters like 16 or even like 17 or other ones that have a lot of terrain. So, yeah, I like her for that. Her Veins aren't nearly as good as Corrin's, but they still have some use. And, yeah, I think I'll leave it there for that. All right, Google Chrome. Chrom is odd. Interesting kit. Chrom really wants to be on like a Mage Knight though, I feel like, for that plus 10 magic and using like 11 sword or something, like an actual good 11 sword, or just magic attacks in general. So, yeah, I think Crom's really, really good. Doesn't deserve to go any lower, but I don't think he is like stupid broken. And last one here, finally, we have the lady herself, Veronica. Veronica is going to round out our top 5. Being able to summon a fodder unit is very good. She gives incredibly good weapons and stat bonuses. Fortify Plus is like a pseudo great sacrifice in that you can get a ton of experience from it. And also, it doesn't just heal, it also cures status ailments, which is really powerful. Especially in like the Felzina log, by the way, where you're getting like poisoned and having your HP like, you know, reduced, like max HP reduced. It's very cool. Veronica's very good that way. But then she gets Contract, which is like a pseudo dance, you know. Not quite as good as like a normal dance from Seedall, but allows unit to act again without moving, which can be very good. So yeah, insanely good. Hard to argue against her being in the top 5. I don't think anyone really would. And, you know, if you get lucky with your summon, like even if you summon like a garbage, you know, like 3-star sword fighter, like that's okay, because that still has a lot of utility. But then beyond that, if you get like a Lucina or a Corin, you're popping off with a Bonded Shield or Veins, dude. So yeah, I really like Veronica. Definitely think she rounds out the top 5 here. This is my opinion though. What do you guys think? Do you think that this tier list is decent at the very least, or do you think it's utter garbage? Let me know in the comments. Please share your thoughts. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to subscribe too. We've been like 500-ish away subscribers from 20,000 for a long time now. It'd be really nice if we just like freaking got there. So if you wouldn't mind subscribing, if you're not, help us get to help us get that 500 subscribers or so to get to 20,000. That would be baller. Please do. Anyways, again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.